I don't want to come across like I'm spitting fear here. Now I'm having conversations with realtors, team leaders, and broker owners every single day reaching out to me for help. And, the vast majority of their business is down 40, 50, 60%. Now, if I need a listing like tomorrow, okay, I can jump on the phones and go make that happen, right? I'm going to keep it, extremely, extremely tactical on what do we need to do right now to go out there and crush it in this changing landscape. Because there's no reason why everybody shouldn't be having the best year right now.
When it comes to the NAR and DOJ settlement and lawsuit, this is the most tactical interview you're ever going to find based on what you need to do right now to prepare for it and capitalize on what we know is about to happen. In this video, Joshua Smith, as a top 1% agent globally with over 7,000 homes sold, breaks down the mindset that you need right now if you want to thrive during these economic climate changes. And also, he breaks down the 5 lead generation sources that you need to be focusing on right now that are converting higher than anything else. And I don't see anybody else talking about any of these 5. Then he goes on to talk about how to convert those leads and how to set up a weekly and daily routine that's going to be engineered to put yourself in an environment that will guarantee you win if you just do the things Josh shares in this conversation. Now, a couple things before we get started. Number 1, Josh is actually one of the featured speakers at our live Atlas Aligned Summit in Nashville, which is just a few weeks after the settlement goes firm. So Josh, in this live event that you want to be a part of, is going to be sharing exactly what you need to do based on the facts to skyrocket your production and take massive market share alongside people like Ed Milet. So you do not want to miss that live event. It's going to be the best event of the year, a speaker lineup like you will not find at any other real estate event or brokerage event, and an experience unlike no other. So I will link tickets below, the Atlas Aligned Summit in Nashville. And also I'm going to link all of Josh's incredible content below. But I want to get straight to the interview because again, this is fire. And you want to make sure to take a ton of notes because this, if you apply it, can completely change your real estate business forever going forward. So let's bring on Josh and dive into all things NAR and DOJ buyer commission settlement and also what you need to do to become a dominant agent in your market, even if you just got your licensed or you're struggling. All right, guys, welcome back. And today we've got a very incredible conversation, one that I've been waiting for quite some time. But we've got on Joshua Smith, a guy that I have an unbelievable amount of admiration for and has been a role model my entire career. But if you haven't been watching his content, I don't see a single other person on any platform, whether it be YouTube or podcast, that has his finger on the pulse of what agents should be doing right now when it comes to the settlement and the whole landscape of the industry. And I know that today we're going to be diving into tactical strategy. So Josh, what's going on, man? Super excited to have you here.
Yeah, no, I'm honored, man. I really appreciate the kind words coming from you, man. It truly means a lot, dude. So I'm excited to be here with you, brother.
Yeah, well, it's been incredible to see your content lately because I find you've got such a wealth of experience and you've been on this journey for so long that you've seen the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, and you have, in my opinion, a really realistic approach to many things that happen. I find, especially in the YouTube space, you see a lot of people trying to get the clickbait or playing on the fear tactics or not really giving advice based on what they know is going to work. They're just trying to leverage the topic to get views and build their brand. But I love your content, and especially over the last couple of months, you've been giving unbelievably tactical strategies. So before we start diving into those lead generation, lead conversion, why don't you just tell people about that background that you have, because you really have been through it all.
Yeah. Well, we're experiencing something right now that I can't say that I've been through, but you go through enough challenges, enough adversity, enough market shifts, changes for different reasons. Like, there can be new things that you're facing, new challenges, but you learn how to adapt effectively, at the right times. So I got in the business back in 2005. So I was 23 years old. I dropped out of college. A couple years prior to that, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. But 23 years old, just moved to Phoenix, Arizona. And man, I was sick and tired of being broke. I was in the gym business at that time, slinging gym memberships. And I loved that job. I loved working out. That's, I always say that health and fitness was my first passion. But when I jumped into real estate, it became my first true obsession, if you will. But I was sick and tired of being broke, making money. And dude, just like most people, outsiders looking into real estate, you're like, oh man, all these realtors make so much money. And this was 2005 was very similar to like 2021, where just dude, crazy, insane sellers market, everything was selling, and but I'm, assessing it. I'm like, look, I didn't want to go back to college. I knew that wasn't for me. So I was like, what vehicle can I afford to jump into? Do I have the money? That's also, whatever, that aligns with my skill set. Cause I'm like, man, I love people. I'd been in sales. My dad owned and operated gyms for 30 years. So I started working for my dad at the age of 11 and got into sales, selling memberships and personal training packages at the age of 14. So a lot of people will hear like my success right out of the gate that I had in the industry. But I think context is really important. Sometimes comparison can be good. Like, okay, when I'm comparing, like my YouTube channel versus your YouTube channel, it's a healthy comparison where I'm using it for inspiration, using it to learn, using it, versus like, I'm not going to beat myself up on it because I don't have as many subs as you, like things like that. Right. So, but man, I had 9 years of sales experience and a lot of sales trainings and great sales mentors, like way before I got into real estate. But I was like, man, I love sales. Love people, and I love working my ass off. So I think I can do this thing. And, jumped in the business, did 48 deals my first year. This was again back in 2005. So we didn't have there was no DocuSign. We didn't have smartphones. So shit just took longer. Right. So when I hit that 48 closings, I wanted to double going into the next year, but I was assessing my business. I'm like, dude, I'm a systems process guy. Like anybody's familiar with a disc, I'm a DC, right? So, I'm a, hardcore driver results based, but man, I'm systems process freak. So I'm like, I don't think my system and processes can get more efficient. But breaking down, I'm like, dude, I need some leverage. There's no way I can do this. I couldn't really fathom how to even add an extra deal a month, let alone double. So I went out there and hired my first full-time assistant, 40 hours a week. Took all the essential non-money making activities off my plate so I could allocate about 90% of my time to money making activities. So that took me to 103 deals the next year. Then that led to me starting my team. And since then, still running and operating, my real estate team. And then I've, also part of a nationwide franchising company. But within my own team, here in Phoenix, I've done over 7,000 transactions and, just continue still at it today, man. So,
yeah, it's incredible. And again, I think it's really cool to, always talking to you, those systems and those frameworks. And I think we'll probably get into some of that, but that's one of the things that I've always admired about you is you boil it down in ways that just make things so consumable, so easy to understand. And most agents are lacking those systems and processes. And I think that's one of the reasons that so many people feel overwhelmed and distracted because they don't have frameworks to follow and things that, they're able to apply pretty easy into their business. And so, we'll get to that, but let's start with the landscape of the industry right now. You've got crazy interest rates with the NAR settlement. What's kind of your take on what's happening right now and maybe the mindset that agents should be going into August and this whole settlement change with?
Yeah, dude. So there's really three overall things that are taking place right now. And at least one of them that I see that is going to blindside a lot more realtors, a lot more agents, a lot more teams and brokerages, even much more so than all the NAR DOJ stuff, which we can dive deep into that because that's important to have awareness of too. But okay, like when we look at the economic winter that we're stepping slowly but stepping deeper and deeper into. So if we look at that, okay, most unaffordable time to be alive is a U.S. citizen. And I'm guessing Canada is the exact same, right? So most unaffordable time to be alive as a human being. Then from there, the most unaffordable time to go out there and acquire real estate when adjusted for inflation and recorded history as well. So like when people are like, oh man, real estate price is so crazy. Like, dude, like you just eliminate real estate out of it. Cost of life has just gotten so damn out of control that people are not able to afford life at this point. People, I think they have awareness in that every time they go to the grocery store, but they're really not paying attention, to what's going on and where this is going, because this is not going to stop. I know the Fed can come out here and say that, oh, we're doing everything we can to lower inflation. Look, dude, you don't listen to what they say, you watch what they do. And when we're adding $1 trillion to the deficit every 100 days, right, when we're funding all these, wars throughout the globe, there's over 40 wars happening right now throughout it's just crazy when you assess everything that's going on, then from there, okay, an open border policy, expansion of social programs, all of these things are extremely highly inflationary. right? Because at this point, we don't have the money to do it. So it's monetization of debt. And when you pull, so that AKA money printing. So when you're pulling money out of the future into the now, it's highly inflationary. So we are probably going to, now I don't have a crystal ball, but everything I'm seeing right now, it's like, and what I'm prepping for and hedging for and tell my agents to prep and hedge for is plan on life getting a minimum of 10% more expensive year over year for at least the next decade. So we're going to be in this big affordability crisis. Now that's twofold for us in the real estate community. Of number one, like we got to manage our own expenses and hedge for this. Now we're really blessed to be in an industry where, okay, if life is getting 10% more expensive year over year, okay, just make sure that your business on a bottom line revenue standpoint is growing by at least 10% year over year. Better yet, make it 20%, which is not extremely difficult to do in this industry, to grow your business 20% year over year on a bottom line net revenue. Okay, then now you're hedging and beating inflation. But that's also going to it's going to keep this low transaction volume for a long time. So, okay, number one, we got the economic winter that, again, we're stepping slower and slower and deeper into, and things are going to get a shit ton worse before they get better. Then on top of that, the secondary thing is, the NAR and DOJ stuff. Now, the NAR stuff, and I know we'll go deep on this on the podcast today, that's very workable. I think that the NAR situation with the NAR settlement as proposed right now, if all of that just goes through and appeases all parties, like that's best case scenario that we have right now. Now 3 weeks after NAR came about with the proposed settlement statement, okay, then the DOJ reopened up their investigation because the DOJ doesn't like this. And the DOJ gets what they want, dude, shit's going to get pretty gnarly. And then we've got, so the buyer lawsuits and that aren't protected in this settlement that now they're, making a bigger stink about. So we'll see how that impacts all of this. Then on top of that, okay, we got this, exponential growth of tech and AI, so those three things, like, dude, if we're not having hyper awareness of this, it's going to make a lot of people in our industry obsolete. I will not be surprised at all if in 10 years from now, instead of there being, 1.5 million, NAR realtors throughout the U.S., if there's 500,000 of us, a lot aren't just going to be able to navigate through this because they don't treat their business as a business. They're not professionals. They're just amateurs. They're wannabes. And that's okay. Like, we need to weed those people out in the first place. So, and I want to just, lead with this, and then I can kind of shut up and then take this any route you want to take this. But I don't want to come across like I'm spitting fear porn here. I'm not a Chicken Little sky is falling. I truly believe right now is the single biggest opportunity that any of us will see in our whole entire careers, possibly our lifetimes, to go out there and create massive opportunity. Because look, just look at here in the States. There's 340 million Americans that at least we have awareness of. So people are still going to need to buy and sell real estate. Real estate's always selling, always has, always will. Right? If there's a third of us out there slinging the real estate, there's a bigger piece of the pie to go around for us. So right now is like all of our time to go out there and grab our market share and just solidify, our positioning for what's to come. So then from there, based on those three things, there are three things, and I'm kind of just rules of three here, but the three things that every agent must do, every agent, every team leader, every broker owner right now, in my opinion, and you guys can, take this with a grain of salt if you want. Now I'm having conversations with realtors, team leaders, and broker owners every single day reaching out to me for help. And, the vast majority of their business is down 40, 50, 60% from what they're historically, and this isn't just agents that just got licensed in 2020. Man, I'm having conversations with people that have been in this game 30, 40 years. And they're just at a loss of what to do right now. Because again, this is a different climate than any of us have ever experienced before. So there are three things that you got to do, right? So number one, you got to become a great operator. So treating your business as a business. If you are just winging it, you're going to continue to receive massive amounts of pain inside your business. So what do I mean by being a great operator, man? You got to obsess over strategy. You got to have your processes dialed in, your systems dialed in. You got to be tracking every important KPI in your business. And then at the appropriate times, know how to strategically leverage, add the right leverage, pieces inside your organization. So how do I know if you're winging it in your business? Here's two quick red flags just so you guys can do a gauge in your own businesses. Number one, if you are not tracking the right data inside your business, the right KPIs. So if you don't know your numbers inside your business. Number two, if you're ever like, okay, I'm at the office, I'm going to work hard today. And then you have to ask yourself, what do I need to do today? Like, you must know what you got to do to win each and every single day, each and every single week. So winging it is going to massive pain, and you're more than likely going to become obsolete. Number two, you got to play strategic offense. Can't play defense anymore. And I know we'll probably go deeper into these different things. And then the third component here is you got to be willing to work your ass off. In business, there's different seasons, man. There's times of peace, times of war. We just came out of the longest bull market in recorded history. We just came out of a decade of peace where you could just kind of show up, kind of work, kind of be consistent, go out there, make multiple six figures. Those times are gone, right? So like now you have to be willing to freaking work your ass off. And you just got to make that decision because the middle class is getting wiped out. And so it's what's happening in our industry, just what's happening in all industries and just in life in general, man. It's transitioning before our eyes right now to where it's just going to be the haves and have-nots. And you got to pick and choose which side of that equation that you want to be on. And if you want to be on the side of the haves, which I'm guessing you are because you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, look, you got to be willing to go out there and do what it takes. So now isn't the time to be seeking balance. Now is the time to be making sure that you and your family are set for the future.
Yeah, dude, that it's such an important point, and that's why I really liked that. We kind of kicked this off with starting about the fact that you're very much a realist, and like you said, it's not like you're some fear mongering, skies falling type approach, but you're very aware of the landscape of everything that's happening and how that can fit together. Because I see a lot of conversations on different mastermind calls and YouTube videos, and a lot of people are treating this whole situation as very casually. It can't make much of a difference. It's not going to be that big of a change. Everything's, home prices are crazy. Demand is so down that the market's going to continue to explode. And a lot of people are kind of taking the complete opposite approach of not looking at the data and kind of making assumptions that it should just be okay. And I think it's really important that you have that perspective. And I'd love to kind of lean into that a bit of saying, okay, we know the factors that are at play. There's certain variables, the fact that we don't know the outcome at the time of recording of the NAR DOJ settlement, but we know something is going to be happening. And so what kind of mindset and kind of approach are you telling agents to go into this with, knowing that there's some knowns, some unknowns? All that we know is shit's going to change and you have to be prepared. And so what's kind of your take on that of saying, well, how do I get prepared?
Yeah. So, the first thing that, you spoke to mindset there of look, dude, I'm not losing sleep over this. So I'm not saying to freak out and lose sleep, but it should be something that you're taking extremely serious inside your business. And I agree with you, Mike, that the vast majority of what I'm witnessing out there, people are not taking this nearly serious enough. Now, the great part about that, because there's always, we're just filled with an industry that's filled with people that are just interested, not committed. And that's what's so brilliant, man. When you are truly committed, it's like fish with dynamite in this industry. I know we have that appearance that it's so saturated. Yeah, but not really. Like go start breaking down the numbers in your market and seeing, okay, how many total agents, then what are the total number of agents that close over 6 transactions a year, over 12 transactions, over 20, dude, the numbers start shrinking really, really damn fast. So that's okay. Let's let the people that are taking this lightly and not prepared get blindsided, and that's okay, right? Like, because business is a zero-sum game. So if my competitors get wiped out, I'm not going to cry about it. But I'm going to personally take this extremely serious. Now, my methodology, and this is just something that served me extremely well, is always hope for the best, plan for the worst. Okay, best case scenario, there's very little disruption. Okay, but then worst case scenario, there's massive disruption. Just like we're talking with the economic winter, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I'm prepping and planning for this being worse than the Great Depression, much worse than the great financial crisis of 08 and 09 and whatnot, and then much worse than the Great Depression. Now, if I hope for the best, plan for the worst, okay, best case scenario happens, okay, I'm good to go. Worst case scenario happens and I plan accordingly and appropriately, then I'm also good to go. So to me, it's the best way to go out there and hedge for our business, So then from there, as far as, okay, what can we do to start preparing for this? Now, we're speaking specifically to what's going on with NAR, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we look at NAR, and I get it. I get the frustrations because look, most of us that are in this industry, are drivers, high D, results-based, So when we don't have certainty and we don't know exactly what to prep and plan for, man, it's frustrating as hell and it can create some fear. And I get that, but there's a lot of gray area, but there's been enough intel given to us where we know what to prep and plan for. So the 4 main changes that are going to start taking place as of August 17th, it was supposed to be in July. Now it's got pushed back to, it looks like August 17th, is okay. Number one, we know that the buyer broker agreement is going to be mandated. They have to be sent. Now it's state by state. Some states have always mandated it, but most haven't. So, okay, you're going to have a buyer broker agreement signed before you go out there and show a single property. Number two, within that buyer broker agreement, your compensation has to be disclosed, negotiated, agreed upon, and signed on the dotted line before you can go out there and show a single property. Third thing that we know is taking place is, okay, that co-broke field is disappearing from out of the MLS. And then the fourth element is how commissions are going to be distributed is changing, right? So it could still be paid out, could still come from the seller, but they're going to come from the form of concessions, through that. So those are the big four changes that we already know of that are taking place right now. So we can start then making changes for this and doing this right now. And we've been at this, when I say we, like me and my team have been at this very heavily. I mean, we probably spent a good, 50 to 60 hours already in preparation for this. And tomorrow we're spending another 3 hours just going through, tons of different scenarios and situations. Okay, you got this buyer client that they're strapped. They cannot come out of pocket to pay any, buyer agent rep fee. The house for them, their dream house that they want, that is just their, it's the one. Okay, multiple offers. Seller's like, nope, not offering any concessions. So there's no code, but okay, how do you handle and how do you navigate in that situation? And, okay, every single, even chunking down and breaking down different lead sources of, like with Zillow, I know not, our industry doesn't have like Zillow a whole lot, in the masses, but it's a big leg of our business. Okay, right now with our Zillow approach, pre these changes has always been, okay, dude, you take the live transfer call, you within 30 seconds of being on that phone, you set that showing, right? You go meet them at the property. Once you're at the property, then you do the buyer consult. Once the relationship's been made, okay, well, how's that going to change that? How is this going to change open houses? So even chunking down and breaking down, okay, different lead strategies that we have in place. What is the different protocol process that we need to follow so that we can be compliant and still be effective with this? Then from there, now this is something that, I've been doing for 17 years now, just because I got sick and tired early on in my career of working with all these buyers. They'd spend all this time with you, 3 weeks, 40 hours, whatever, just showing them a shit ton of properties, take them out to lunch. Then all of a sudden they ghost you. Then eventually, 2-3 weeks after the fact, they finally reach out to you, finally get in touch with them, and they tell you that they bought a house through somebody else. I just got sick of that very early on in my career, where I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. This is my fault. This is not theirs. I'm going to treat the buy side every bit as strict as I do the list side. So I'm not going to work with anybody that doesn't do a full in-depth buyer consultation and doesn't commit to me. So, and we can do a deep dive into what an effective buyer consultation should have and how to lead that seamlessly into a buyer broker agreement. But luckily for me with my team, this has been something that, we've been hardcore on for 17 years. And I'm telling you guys right now, getting a buyer broker agreement signed is much easier than getting the listing agreement signed. If you were to look at this worst case, if you have the right buyer consultation process in place, dude, if you're not getting 99 out of 100, there's a problem there, right? It's very easy to go out there and sell that value. The problem is, I also have a coaching consulting company, so I work with a lot of, realtors with other organizations as well, and the common thing, the pushback I get from them and this has been for years and years, not now, everybody gets this now, but when I'm talking to them about, again, treating their buyer consultation like a listing presentation, having a hone and dial, presentation where we're articulating our value and getting a buyer broker agreement signed, the resistance I always got is, well, that's not normal in our market. Agents don't do that. That's not normal. I'm like, dude, it's not the norm in the vast majority of markets. It doesn't mean you shouldn't still be doing it. If you value your time and value your business, you should be doing it. Right? So making sure that you're home, and these are things that you can start now. Don't wait until August 17th to start doing this stuff. Yeah, you may not have your new buyer broker agreement signed or your new buyer broker agreement to start using, but you have the current one that exists. Start doing it now so you're not having to make these adjustments then. We have several months now to get our shit together to be fully, honed in and dialed in. Prepping in those ways. But then start looking at is on the listing side. And there's really a couple things here. Now, some of you are experiencing this, some of you aren't experiencing this, and does differentiate market to market. Typically we're seeing this more in the bigger markets, bigger metros already. But in the consumer's mind, yeah, for us, all these changes take place in August. Consumer's mind, this has already happened. They're watching CNN, they're watching Fox. This is internally as a team, we took 2 listings last week that the sellers refused to pay any buyer agent commission, any co-broke, right? Those listings are on the MLS at a 0%. Now we have our scripting that we walk through to try to encourage them to do that. And then at that point, it's our agent's decision. It's got to be a business decision, no different than taking an overpriced listing, but we got to be prepared for this stuff now. But like start them breaking down those scenarios again when I were talking about prepping and planning of, okay, I got a listing, seller's not willing to pay any co-broke, so now I got buyers calling me direct that want to go show that property. Okay, how am I going to handle those scenarios? Now, with every one of your listings, if you're used to in your internal processes and protocol having just other agents show those properties, so now you got your weekends back, you got your evenings back. Now, if you got all these buyers coming to you directly, okay, how are you going to handle that? What's your internal processes for that? When you got all these agents, because that co-broke field's gone away, when you got all these agents now blowing you up saying, oh man, are they offering anything? If so, what are they looking to offer? Right? Okay, we can start prepping and planning and seeing how we're going to put those processes and systems together. Okay, what are you going to do in the event that your seller's not willing to offer anything, and the buyer can't afford to pay anything, and they come to you, and you got to do a dual agency situation because that's the only way to put that deal together. How are you going to handle that? You're going to do double the work for the same price? Like again, just all these things that we can start mind mapping out on a whiteboard in our own businesses. So then all of a sudden we're not blindsided when this shit comes. And I get it. Like we're going to learn things as this comes out. There's like, you can only prep so much, but you should be prepping very heavily for as much of this as you possibly can right now.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I really encourage the thought process of just questioning every scenario, because the surest way to fail, the surest way to know that you're going to get rocked by this situation is if you do nothing. And I think a lot of agents are doing nothing. They're just kind of waiting for that to happen and then say, well, I'll figure it out when it happens, but not proactively saying there's a ton of things I could figure out right now. And I love that, you're spending hours breaking down every scenario. And I think that's what proper preparation is really questioning yourself. If I'm faced with any of these random situations, even if they're kind of on an ad hoc basis, you've got a plan. And I really like that. And I think, you brought up a good kind of segue of that buyer consultation and being able to get people to sign the agreement. Because in my market, we've had to do buyer rep agreements since I got licensed. It's been a thing in my province since the beginning. But a lot of people are hesitant to bring up the conversation, or they feel nervous or anxious to be able to segue a buyer's presentation into the proper signed representation guide. What's kind of your process in recommendations there?
Yeah. So and look, you guys, like when I say these things, I get it, and sometimes you might look at top producer like myself or Mike and be like, oh well, you guys don't understand. No, we've been there too. We all started at the same place, and for the first couple of years of my career, I'd tell myself stories like, I don't need to get my buyer clients to sign these, because if I'm doing my job and I'm doing a great job for them, they're going to commit to me. They're going to be loyal as long as I'm doing my job, and we'll be fine, right? But the reality is I was just too much of a chicken shit. I was just too much, right? Like I was just too much of a wuss to, until I got burned enough. And again, it wasn't their fault. It was my fault. I mean, it's easy to go out there and point the finger, but great operators, great leaders always take 100% full responsibility. And to start chunking that down, I'm like, dude, this is my fault. Like I'm intentionally bringing this pain into my world because it's my fault. So then from there, okay, let's break down. Now, the first thing that I'm going to cover here are the first few things, and I can go through and break down my full buyer consultation process if you want me to. But the first thing, this is going to apply to whether you're going after buyers, sellers, or agent recruits, so if we look, okay, what is a great presentation? Like, what should a great presentation do? Okay, number one, it should inform and educate. And inform and educate it's twofold. It should inform and educate them, and then it should inform and educate you as well. So okay, for a buyer, on a buyer consult, it should inform and educate them on the overall buyer process, should inform and educate them on getting them clarity on exactly what they want, which I can talk about that deeper when I get into my consultation process, because that also articulates your value, but then should give us as the professional extreme clarity on what their goals are, expectations are, needs are, right? So step number one is it should inform and educate. Step number two is it should articulate your value. Step number three is it should overcome any concerns, aka objections. Objections are just concerns. So it should bring up and overcome any objections. And then the fourth component is lead seamlessly into the close. So when you're assessing and breaking down any of your presentation, okay, is my presentation doing this, right? So then from there, when we look at, okay, if I look at, again, at a very high level, okay, my buyer consultation and listing presentation exists to make sure that I'm working with ready, willing, able, committed clients. ready, willing, able, and committed clients. So making sure that they're ready. Okay, like is there a sense of urgency? Is there like you can't go out there and start spending all this time with somebody that's not looking to go out there and buy for 3 years. Like I had a client one time, and this was a referral, so I didn't vet him. This was early on in my career. But I'm showing them, and they're looking at all these multi-million-dollar properties, all these mansions in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley, and they own this tech company. So I didn't do the things I'm going to tell you guys to do here in a moment. But this was a mistake of mine, but where I learned about, okay, like ready, willing, able, so then though, I'm spending all this time with them. I mean, well over a week, but 8-hour day, just looking at all these crazy properties. And then finally they asked me, well, hey, can we go out to dinner? Can we take you and your wife out to dinner? I was like, sure. Yeah, it sounds great. So they go out to dinner and they start thanking me, but they started thanking me like in a breakup way, right? And I'm like, what's going on here? So then they decide that they disclosed to me that they actually aren't viable buyers. Their life coach had told them to go through and do this process so they could manifest what their future home is going to look like. So it's like a vision board on steroids. Now, again, was that their fault or was that my fault? No, it's my fault, right? Like I let them abuse my time and waste my time, so, okay, like, are they ready? Are they willing? So like willing, meaning, are they willing to do what it takes? They might be ready. They might be able, but let's just say, okay, like in 2021, maybe they're able to buy a $500,000 property, but like in my market, okay, there's 500,000 means it's selling for 600,000. They're having to pay $100,000 over appraised value, waive the appraisal contingency, and cover that appraisal gap. So like, are they even if they're able to do it, are they willing to do that? Or are they somebody that's like, no, I'll only buy if I can get this stellar deal that's just maybe, not something that's realistic in our market. So got to make sure that they're able to, are they qualified? Do they have the proof of funds? And then committed. Committed is, are they committed to the process, and they're like committed to us to go out there and work with them, throughout this protocol and process. So those are kind of the very high levels of, why this exists, and then what a great presentation should have. Do you want me to break down my actual buyer consultation presentation?
Yeah, I'd love that. Hey, are you looking to take your real estate business to a completely new level, but feel like you need a proven plan of action of what to do every day in this market to become a top producer? Well, if that's you, you need to come to the Atlas Aligned Summit this September in Nashville. This live event has a speaker lineup like you won't find at any other realtor-focused event in 2024. Let me explain why so many people are coming and why tickets are selling fast. We have the likes of Ed Milet, Alan Stein Jr., and James Lawrence talking about how to break through obstacles and everything related to mindset. Joshua Smith giving you tactical strategies based on the NAR settlement of how to become a top producer in the next 12 months. Jen Gottlieb on how to leverage AI to build your personal brand. Suman Kim for the first time ever revealing the secrets that allowed him to close $5 million in gross commission in 2.5 years for free from YouTube. Darren Langell on how to become the dominant agent in any farm community, and so much more. We're going to be breaking down artificial intelligence, video marketing, time management, productivity, systems, processes, accountability, everything that you need in order to go into the next 12 months and make them the best you've ever faced in your career, despite the challenging times that we're facing in this market. Tickets are selling fast. You can go to atlasalliancesummit.com or click the link in the description to get the best pricing right now. This event is all about raising your standards and achieving your true potential and removing all distractions so you know exactly what you need to do every day. And these speakers are coming together like never before in order to give you the proven roadmap based on what works right now. So if you're looking for a breakthrough and you want to be surrounded by 1,500 like-minded agents just like you, wanting to go to that next level and willing to do what it takes, we'll see you at the Atlas Aligned Summit.
Okay, I'll do a little mini version because this is like a 60-minute presentation, right? Okay, so I start off with the dream home form. So our dream home form is getting extreme clarity on what it is that they want. Okay, because as real estate professionals, it's our job to help our clients. Because here's the cool thing I love about real estate. People already sold on the fact they want to buy and sell real estate. Or if you're recruiting agents, they're already sold on the fact they want a career in real estate. Our job is then, so we're not actually selling a physical product. What we are selling is we articulating that we're the best guide to get them from point A to point B. That's our job, right? To articulate that we're the best guide. So how can you possibly go out there and do the best job that you possibly can and serve and support your clients at the highest possible level if you don't have extreme clarity on what it is that they want? And I'm here to tell you right now, most people just don't have extreme clarity on what they actually want in their own lives. So when we go through this, again, it's twofold, right? So it's informing and educating us on what they want, what they need, what their expectations, timelines are. But then it's also informing and educating them, especially when it's couples. A lot of times, man, they don't have that extreme clarity. So it's not just, and when I say inform and educate, articulate value, in those different components, doesn't mean like it's got to be step one is just inform it. Like, okay, these are all kind of intertwining, right? So yeah, this is going to be inform and educate, but it's also articulating your value. So when you are truly listening and you're asking a lot of engaging questions, so like we're going through this dream home form, and I tell them up front, hey, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. In order for me to serve and support you at the highest level of accomplishing your real estate goals, it's extremely important that I have full clarity on exactly what is that you're looking for, why you want it, why it's important to you, so I can do the best job I possibly can of finding exactly what you want and need. Now, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the research and the studies. Depending on the study that you read right now, it's somewhere between 82 and 90% of home buyers that have bought since 2020 have buyer's remorse. So I look at this, okay, like if I'm a great buyer's agent and a great realtor, my job is to, go get the deal done. But then on top of that, even probably more important than that, to minimize and hopefully remove any element of buyer remorse. So it's our job to be that unemotional professional. So, I call it, so what I'm really looking for. So yeah, we're going through bedrooms, bathrooms, what they're looking for in location. And, it's a multi-page form here, but I'm asking a lot of follow-up questions. Well, why is that important to you? So like, well, if I want to be in this location, well, why is that location important to you? Right? So I want to do a deep dive on that. And again, I tell them up front of what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, so it makes sense to them, but what I'm really looking for, I call it bullet holes and Band-Aids. So Band-Aids are going to be the shallow items that, yeah, they might say they're important to them. And I'm not saying that they're not, but that they will wane fast. So the bullet holes is, what is that true pain point? Because if somebody's looking to make a move, man, they're experiencing pain with their current living situation. They want out of that pain and they want to get to pleasure. I need to identify what that true root pain is. So as an example, maybe they're like, hey man, I want these types of floors, these types of countertops, these types of cabinets. Okay, I know that those are Band-Aids. And I'm not saying that they may not really want those things or not, but like, dude, after 6 months of those, I know you're a car guy. So maybe this has happened to you, maybe it hasn't happened to you, but it's like every car I've ever bought, it's like, dude, it's dope for like 3 months, maybe 6 months. Then after that, I'm like, right? So like those things will wane, right? And again, not trying to diminish the importance, but what I'm really looking for is that bullet hole. So as an example, maybe they're like location. I want to be here. Well, why is that important to you? Well, right now with my, where we currently live, I got to commute an hour a day, every single day into the city, into downtown Phoenix for work. So it's an hour every morning, an hour every single evening, just gone away from my life that I can't spend with my wife, can't spend with my kids, 2 hours robbed every day out of my life. And I'm just sick and tired of it. Boom, I got the bullet hole. Now we might find a house that they fall in love with and they're like, Josh, I want to put an offer on this property. Okay, look, I love this property. I agree with you, but hey, I just want to make sure, I want to have a quick conversation to make sure that you're not accidentally making a mistake here. This is a beautiful home. I understand it has X, Y, Z. However, you had mentioned that when you started this process, the most important thing to you was removing that commute so you could buy yourself back those 2 hours every single day. This property is roughly the same distance, same commute time, because maybe it's got a tricked out kitchen, dream kitchen, but our clients get emotional, they get blindsided. Again, as I said a moment ago, it's our job to be the unemotional professional. So now I can sit there and be like, hey, this doesn't solve that. And my concern is that 6 months after you're living in this house, all these other, I know it's got your dream kitchen, but after 6 months cooking in that kitchen, that stuff's going to wane. But because you don't remove this pain of this commute, my fear is in 6 months from now, you're going to have some regret and wish that you didn't make this purchase. Now you're the boss. I work for you. I'll do whatever you want me to do. If you want to buy this house, let's go get it for you. I just want to make sure to bring this up and have a conversation and making sure that you're thinking this through so that way you don't make an accidental possible mistake. Right? Okay, so I'm going through the dream home form. And then too, like I said, that's articulating value in that. Okay, you ever go to a doctor? Like you have, maybe two different experiences. You go into the doctor and you got this one doctor that isn't really listening to you. They're just rushing you. Like you just feel like a number. And then all of a sudden you have that doctor that comes in. They make you feel, even though they got a ton of patients but they make you feel like you're the only patient that they have. They're asking you questions. They're truly listening to you. People want to be heard. The most desired thing of all, like the deepest desire of all human beings is the feeling of significance, right? And so when you're truly listening and truly hearing, what they're saying, that makes them feel significant. It's going to deepen that level of connection. And we know that 88% of buyers and sellers go with the first agent they meet with and connect with in person. So this is also articulating value. So once we get through the dream home form, then I go into the contract, and now we're educating and informing them on what the steps are, what the processes are, buying a home here in the state of Arizona, what the financial investments are. But this is also, again, articulating value. So as an example, like I'm going to go through, I'm not going to read the contract line by line, but I'm going to go through like the big, all the different contingencies, like inspection periods. So as an example of this, maybe I'm going through and explaining how the okay, here in the state of Arizona, we have a 10-day standard inspection time. So that's 10 days to go out there and get all our inspections done. Now, this is enough time, but it is important that we jump on this and operate with urgency during this time, because during this 10-day period, we got to have all your inspections done. But let's just say, as an example, during the home inspection, the home inspector discovers that there's some cracked trusses up in the attic, and that possibly could be structural. So then we might need to bring out a structural engineer to further evaluate those to see if this is a big issue or not a non-issue. Then maybe the structural engineer then does deem that, hey, this is indeed structural. So we got to get some, specialized contractors out there to go give us some bids on that, so we know what's up against. So not only do we have to have all of those things done, we also then have to decide what your game plan is. Hey, does it make sense to get out of this deal and cancel? Does it make sense to go ask the seller to repair these or to ask for a credit? So not only do we have to have all this stuff done, have your game plan together, but we got to have it documented, signed, and delivered to the listing agent before the end of this 10-day period of time. If it rolls over even by 60 seconds, now you've waived your right to inspections. Legally, you've accepted the property as is. You can no longer ask for repairs. You can no longer cancel. If you do cancel, you are now in breach of contract and you're going to lose your earnest money. Now, I don't want you to stress about this stuff. This is what I'm here for, and this is the importance of hiring a professional like myself, because it's my job to make sure that all of this stuff happens in the way that it needs to, and make sure that your best interests are always looked out for. So I got this stuff covered, but it's important that you understand what's going on. Right? So, okay, I'm informing and educating, but I'm also then doing that and going through and articulating my value. So we'll do that, for appraisal contingency, more like going through the contract with that. Then from there, the next phase is now I go through, before I ask for their commitment, now I'm going to go through our commitment form. So our buyer services commitment form that we go through, and you can call it whatever names that you want to create, buyer VIP services, but then we go through and, okay, here's all the things that you can expect from us that we're going to be doing to work hard for you. So like an example, several different things in there, but like one of them is, okay, if the property that you're looking for doesn't exist on the MLS, here's how we're going to go out there and do everything we can to find you this property. Yeah, right. So we're going through a whole list of all the different things that they can expect for us. One of the, like us as realtors, do we work our ass off for our clients? Like we all do. I mean, I know that there's some of them that don't, but anybody that's watching, listen to the podcast, I know that you guys are committed. So the freaking late evenings, nights, it's like 24/7. When people ask us how much do you work, it's like, I don't know, how many hours am I not sleeping, right? But where we fall short, in the most part, not saying everybody, but just as an industry, is we don't articulate to our clients all the things that we do for them. And I've been guilty of that too, where it's like, hey man, I want them to think everything's going smooth. They don't got to see all the fires the shit that I'm doing behind the scenes. Like I want this to be a smooth experience and feel like a smooth experience. And we think that that's doing a great service to them, but it does a disservice to us where they think we're just door openers, right? So I go through, hey, here's all the things I'm going to do hard for you. Here's all the things I'm going to commit for you. Then after we get done going through our commitment to them, now we transition the buyer broker agreement, ask for their commitment. Now, as I'm going through that, I'm like, hey, this is not obligating you to go out there and purchase a property. If we don't find you what you want or you have a change of heart, this is not in by any way, shape, form, or fashion obligating you to go out there and purchase a property. This is just stating that within whatever period of time that we, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, whatever you guys want to put in there, that if you do end up deciding to move forward with a purchase of property, that you're committed to utilizing me as your real estate agent. So then we just explain it to them, sign here, boom. It's just a non-issue, especially like when you're, this is really important. You got to make sure not just to have the presentations dialed in, but you got to practice and role play your presentation. So like when I bring on a new agent into my real estate team, I have them practice their buyer consultation, their listing presentation 1,000 times in their first 12 months. I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, dude, you can get in three rounds, within a 60-minute period per buyer consult versus listing consult. So it's like, hey, 2 hours a day. And if you guys aren't learning and practicing and developing your skill sets 2 hours a day, like there's other problems that you're gonna achieve in this business. You guys should all be allocating, roughly at least 2 hours a day. Like what do professionals are always training, always practicing, they're always getting better. Like if you're not better today than you were yesterday, okay, you're not growing, man, and your business is gonna remain stagnant. But then why do I do that? Right. So, number one, okay, like this is how I take brand new agents fresh out of school and get them making 20, 30 grand, even after splits within their first 5 or 6 months. It's how I can take agents in their first year making, 300, 400 grand a year. Cause within their first year, they got more reps and more experience in another way. But then agents that have been doing this 20 or 30 years. So it can be an agent, someone been in the business 9 months and go head to head with somebody who's been doing this 30 years and crush them. Yeah. Right. The other thing that you got to understand is sales is a transference of conviction. Right. So whoever's most certain is going to go in there and typically win that negotiation, that engagement, so the practice isn't so much about memorizing the presentation. It's every time you get in a rep, right, you have more confidence. It's like, Mike asked me to be a guest speaker at the, event coming up in Tennessee in September, which will be the biggest event I've ever spoke at. And, just massively honored, the mega speakers up there, that I never fathomed I'd ever be sharing the stage with. You best believe I'm going to be practicing the hell out of that presentation because I'm already introverted. I already get stage fright. Now being in front of 1,500 people, like, dude, I got to go. But the more reps that I get in, right, the more confidence and certainty I'm going to have on my delivery of that presentation.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I want to come back to, the conversation around the activities that people should be doing every single day. And again, genuinely honored to have you at that event. It's going to be insane to finally have everybody to get to see you in person. But, you said something really important there that I want to make sure it doesn't get skipped over is about conviction. And maybe you have some book recommendations or some people to follow online, but for me, communication is the number one skill in entrepreneurship and business, and I had been in that situation where as a new agent I crushed more experienced agents just because I was more certain, I was more confident, and I practiced. Do you have any recommendations for people that maybe have subpar communication skills aside from just repetitions of maybe people they can learn from or books they can read about body language and things like that in order to kind of help with those communications and that delivery?
Yeah, there's a couple. Now, with this, like I have learned way more from studying human behavior and human psychology when it comes to sales than I ever have studying sales. So I'm sure you guys have probably read, a bazillion different sales books out there. And with where human behavior is going today, because people are more easily sensitive and more easily triggered than any other time in our lifetimes. So like most of these old school sales tactics are so damn ineffective. Now it's about, I call it selling without selling. So yes, you're leading, you're selling. Yes, you're leading. Yes, you are selling, but you need to do it in such a way where nobody feels as if they're being sold. The best salespeople on the planet today, you'll never feel as if you're being sold. So there's a gentleman named Michael Oliver. His book is around, it's called, I think the title is called Natural Selling, right? His stuff is phenomenal. Believe it or not, but dude, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah. Dude, I still reread that book once a year, every single year. That's kind of my, and how always has been through my career, my communication Bible. Now, it just so happened to be that human behavior is switched this way. But like I said earlier, like I'm very introverted, dude. Like I hate being pushed and pressured and hard sold when I'm in a sales situation. So I've never been able to be that guy, So for me, I had to figure out, okay, as an introvert, without coming across as salesy, like how do I go out there and sell effectively? Now, 20 years ago, that was a little bit more of a challenge. Now I figured out how to do it and allowed me to become one of the top, realtors and team leaders on the planet. But the great part about that now is that's what, human behavior's caught up with that. That's what people want now. And that's the style of selling that they want. So How to Win Friends, Influence People, highly encourage you to go out there and read that book. Even though it was written in the 1930s, it's more relevant today than it was back then. And then Robert Cialdini's work. Yeah. So Book of Influence, Pre-Persuasion, those are both that I've probably read each of those, multiple dozen times. That have like just, and I see you nodding your head there. It sounds like you've read those too, but just like, okay, in his book Influence, where he talks about the importance of giving a reason, and if you give a reason, if the reason doesn't make sense, it increases compliance by over 50%. Now, if you give a reason, the reason does make sense, it increases compliance by over 90%. And they would test these out by like things like, going to a college campus and trying to cut in the line at the copy machine and, just saying, hey, do you mind if I cut? Okay, like zero compliance. Hey, do you mind if I cut? I need to make copies. Well, everybody's in that line to make copies. That reason makes no sense, but they got like a 50% yes rate. Then, hey, can I cut? Or do you mind if I cut? I need to make copies. I'm running late to work and I'm going to be late. Okay, then if the reason makes sense, okay, now you got a 90% compliance. So then, okay, like I've just learned, like when I'm, doing presentations, or even when on the phone with, like when I'm trying to get, let's just say I got a Facebook lead coming in and I'm trying, like, objective of conversation number one with any lead or prospecting, like any conversation you're having is to identify goal, identify timeline, set appointment if able or appropriate, if unable or appropriate, because we know goal and timeline. Now we know the right follow-up protocol going forward. So I need that goal and timeline. So what do online buyer leads, like Facebook and PPC always say, oh, we're just browsing. You got to learn pre-framing and mirroring and all of these different things. But okay, like the quickest way to overcome an objection is just to bring it up before they bring it up. So it's just, hey, I know that you're probably just browsing, not looking to make a move now anytime at all in the, the near future. So just hypothetically speaking, the reason why I ask, it's just, just helps me with overall business planning, but just hypothetically speaking, I mean, if you were to, make a possible move in the future, what would you see your best guesstimate to when that time frame might possibly be? Within 6 months, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years. I'd actually slow it down even further than that. I'd insert a couple little extra stutters. Like, tonality is important, you guys. Because it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. 70% of sales comes from our verbal, nonverbal cues, and this is where this stuff. Now, if you're naturally energetic like me and you get passionate, you get excited, like I got to be very careful with it because I'll freak people the hell out. So I've had to learn to really slow things down. Like if you ever like came to my office and heard me in sales calls and scripting, it sounds unorthodox, man. I'm intentionally, inserting stutters because I don't want it. It's not just about not sounding like other realtors. It's also about not sounding like any other recent sales experience that they've had. Because if you do, you're going to trigger sales resistance. They go into the croc portion of the brain, fight or flight mode is triggered. So they're looking to fight or they're looking to flight. Right. And that's where you get the hard shutdowns or the hangups. And all of that can easily be overcome because I don't care how good your script is, or how good your pitch is or how good your offer is, if they're not listening to it. And we've all been in those sales situations where it's like, okay, I just think of us, being the one that's being sold, where the person that's talking, like we're not even listening to the person that's talking. We're just trying to think about how are we going to respond to get out of this situation, so that, that's called passive listening. We need to keep them in active listening mode. So like you got to learn really how to, pre-frame, and then in Michael Oliver's Natural Selling, this is where I learned, that from, tonality, like most of this between the, those 3 books that I gave you guys is, and we can go deeper into any of this stuff, but those are the 3, people I'd recommend. And if you watch my podcast, I have a ton of coaching and free training videos on this stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to make sure that that's linked below. And what I'll probably do, Josh, too, is find a couple specific videos on some of the things we're talking about that I know that you've done so that people can go back and have a direct line of resource. But yeah, Robert Cialdini is incredible. I met him when he spoke at one of the Arte events, and just seeing the various examples that he shared about how he's been able to change just the structure or the positioning of a couple words, and for that to make a 1,000x return on different people's marketing. It's unbelievable to see what some of these communication strategies can do. But that's kind of a good segue into one of the things I know a lot of people are curious about that I get asked a lot right now. You brought up lead generation, Facebook ads, online leads, and I'd love to kind of take it in this direction of low-hanging fruit and or opportunities that you're seeing right now. Like even in your GSD mode community, I saw you kind of sharing your divorce script in there. And I'd love for you to kind of maybe unpack for an agent that doesn't have much business or any business in a dry pipeline right now. What are you kind of advising for if I need to get a deal within the next 30, 45 days? What's kind of the best approach that you'd kind of recommend right now?
Yeah. So, in this, I'm so glad you're asking this question because it's so important, man. Timeline is so essential. And I see so many agents. It's not that they have it's not that they're doing the wrong things. They're doing the wrong things for themselves based on their situation. So like an example with this, I'm having a conversation with a lady the other day. I do, these free coaching calls, to help people break down their business. And she reaches out to me and she's like, okay, I want to build my business through social, through social media, organic social, and through YouTube. And I was like, hey, those things are amazing. I do those things too. Those make me millions of dollars on an annual basis. But then I was like, I'm a huge fan of those things. But now let me ask you this. How long can you go without a paycheck before you're in trouble? Yeah. And she says 4 months. I'm like, okay, here's the conundrum. You're going to be out of money before you ever start to see the fruits of those labors. Even if you do everything right, don't make one mistake. I mean, dude, like you're the YouTube king. Like, how long it takes. Average agent is 9 to 12 months. I mean, sometimes you see some that get lucky or, have different situations, but average is about 9 to 12 months before you start seeing consistent business flow coming in from those, or like, okay, if I'm doing pay-per-click, right? Whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Google, it's like, okay, average pay-per-click lead is in my system 6.7 months before they become a client, so we got to understand that. So your scenario of what I call now immediate money, right? And by now immediate money, nothing's now immediate in this business. So, that means, okay, a paycheck in your hand within 90 to 120 days. Those are going to be prospecting based activities. I get it. They suck, at least for most people. They're not the fun things to do, but it doesn't mean that you can't stack. And what I'll do, not always, because some people just want to do prospecting based stuff, but in most cases, most people don't want to do those forever, because they're also harder to scale over time. Like you start popping 3-4 deals a month. Well, it gets hard to scale that beyond that, in certain scenarios and situations. There is no one size fits all of this can be very nuanced. So, but with that, okay, like there's nothing wrong with stacking a couple now immediate sources and then a couple long-term sources. Eventually, the YouTube stuff that you're learning from, like eventually that will replace these, but it's like, we need money to pay our bills now. So it's going to be prospecting based stuff. So, okay, then we got to start breaking down, okay, do you want your business to be buy side or list side? Now, my recommendation with all this NAR and DOJ stuff, and more specifically the DOJ stuff, right? Because how the DOJ wants this to play out, they're not happy with this. They do not like this, any element, any inch of this. Sometimes I'll get challenged of, how do you know what the DOJ is thinking? I'm like, dude, they tell us exactly what they're thinking. You can go, it's all public record. You can go to what the DOJ's attorney's notes are on every single one of these court cases that we faced thus far, and with what their recommendations are. Like, they are like, yeah, you got to go do some digging and you got to go read the notes, but I'm just one of these freaks that does, but they want true commission decoupling. So that would mean, okay, seller compensating listing agent, buyer compensating buyer's agent. No way, shape, form, or fashion can the other compensate the other. So then from there, how many of you are buyers? With as expensive as hell as real estate is today, with as expensive as life is today, with expenses, with interest rates being where they're at, how many of them can come out of pocket the additional funding to pay you with what your fee is if it becomes illegal to get any assistance from any of the other parties involved? Okay, like probably, I mean, you can do your own assessment in your own mind about your own business with that, right? But like it's probably gonna be like 90%, right? So then the cool thing is, okay, we have other countries that are set up this way. And I have coaching clients in those countries. And so let's just say, example, my coaching clients in New Zealand, it's like, I'm never having conversations about it like, oh, here's how we go out there and generate buyer leads. It's just, hey, here's how we get listing. Here's how we go out there and just stack listings, and, they just all become listing agent machines. And then pretty much buyers come directly to them, and they dual side every transaction. If they have representation, usually in most cases, they're being represented by an attorney, not a real estate agent, right? Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the way it's going to go. But again, as I said very early on this podcast, hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? So my recommendation, so like, here's an example. One of my agents who just murders it with YouTube and social organic. I mean, she has just herself, she has certain months where she does 8 deals a month, just from her YouTube channel. So about a year and a half ago, when all this stuff started coming about, I'm like, hey, look, I don't want you to stop anything that you're doing. I want you to keep doing that. But in addition to that, I want you to just pick one listing niche of the different niches I'm going to walk you through, and just 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day, one niche. That will get you stacking at least one listing a month, right? Easy to go out there and get with the right strategy, process, and skill set. But then at least you have this skill set dialed in, just in case this other stuff gets disrupted. You're not having to start from scratch and you're going to have that freak out moment. So my recommendation is that all of you pick at least one listing niche and start targeting that right now and building that in your arsenal. So then, okay, am I going to be buy side heavy, listing side heavy? So, buy business, assuming that you have nobody in your database, right? So buy side business is going to be quickest way to now immediate buy side business, open houses. Just how it plays out. Again, I know they're a pain in the ass, but they can, like, dude, if you know the right process, and again, I've got tons of content on this, for free on my YouTube channel. You guys can go check out of what our 6-step, mega open house strategy is. But like, there's no reason why, like, if you need a buyer client by the end of this week, why you can't go out there and knock out 1 or 2 effective open houses this weekend. And like, you should be converting 1 out of 10, with the leads through open houses. And then just in case you guys do have leads in your database, so often, so many are like, oh, I need to stack in more leads, and I get that, but it's like, okay, you got this bucket think of that as your database. And then we want to keep adding more leads. But if we got all these holes inside of our bucket, it doesn't matter how much more water you keep pouring in there, more leads you keep pouring in there, like you're not going to retain that water. You're not going to have results with those. So a coaching client of mine that's actually, up in Canada, up in Toronto area, reaches out to me in January. This was when he was becoming a coaching client of mine. Wasn't a coaching client with our first conversation, but doing a ton of Google pay-per-click. And I'm like, hey, dude, like, look, your conversion rates are way too low. Like, we got your holes in your butt. I'm not saying to necessarily stop completely new lead gen, but we need to slow this way the hell down. We need to go, because, with the number, I ran the numbers for him. I'm like, dude, like, you got about $200,000 sitting in your database right now. I'm like, we got to make sure everybody's on the right follow-up protocol, getting the right calls, having the right conversations. And just having a conversation with him just this past week. And since then, just talking about with what's in his database, he's already closed 5 deals between January and the end of May, just with what's already in there. So I want to say that because, like, hey, look, don't neglect, the shit that you have in your database, right? Because there's very few that I meet that actually have a lead gen problem. The vast majority is their inability to convert leads into appointments. That's the problem, right? So then from there on the listing side, though, there's 5 niches that are converting the best right now. Now, I don't know how many of those that are watching and listening are Canada versus States. I know that there's some differences. Now, the cool thing is you can do letter campaigns, you can do calls, but if you can't do calls, you might have to go out there and door knock if you're allowed to door knock and target. And if you're, I don't know all the rules. And it seems like every province can differentiate, just like the states can differentiate too here. But like letter campaigns work extremely effectively, but they're longer, right? So like I've got a highly effective expired converting letter. It's epic. It's amazing. I get sellers calling me saying, hey, Josh, I've been getting your letters. We're thinking about listing our property. Can you meet with us? It's the way I love doing business. I like people calling me up, right? But here's the problem with it. My average call on that expired letter is 5 months post expiration. After letter number 8, 5 months post expiration. So I go get that, go on that listing appointment. By the time the house gets prepped, ready, marketed, okay, now we're 5.5, 6 months in. Okay, find a buyer. Maybe it's another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after that, then go into contract. Now we're looking 7 or 8 month timeline before I got a paycheck. Now, if I need a listing like tomorrow, okay, I can jump on the phones and go make that happen, right? So the 5 niches that are working best right now, we got expireds, we got for sale by owners, we got divorces, you got absentee owners, and we got pre-foreclosures. Because this is a market, and this is really, really important. This is a market where you need to be targeting those that need to buy or sell, not those that want. There's abundance of people that want to buy or sell, but they're like, hey man, I need an extra bedroom. We're having pain here, but the pain of buying at today's price with today's interest rates is more painful than tolerating our current living situation. So turnover rate's so low. So this is why things that maybe worked 4 or 5 years ago, like geofarming. Now if you have a great established geofarm, I wouldn't abandon it, but I wouldn't personally start a new geofarm in this market. Things like why circle prospecting are yielding such low results. Not saying you can't get some results, but you could get 4x the results if you really niche down with people that have that need, that have that urgency. So like divorce is like you mentioned, right? That's one of the niches that's popping really good right now. Okay, most unaffordable time to be alive is a citizen. So what's the number one reason for divorce? Financial hardship. So divorces are on the skyrocket. Okay, probability of them living under that same rooftop, as they go through this, very low. Probability of them needing to sell to split that asset as they go through this, this life change, very high. Right? So we need to go after, okay, who's in a situation where they're delivering enough pain in their situation that creates that urgency for that now immediate business.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think that's where it comes down. And you kind of alluded to this, Josh, of being mindful of your market, because I think a lot of people will kind of hear what other people are doing in other markets that are completely decoupled from theirs, and they're trying to just bring that to their market, even if the opportunity is completely different in theirs. And I think that's where it comes down to, some of those activities that people can do to prepare for the changes that are happening is start to actually finally become a market expert and identify the opportunities that are specific to your market. Because a lot of people don't quite have that, understanding of where the opportunities lies, which is why when they run Facebook ads or create YouTube content or use Google PPC, they're doing such a blanket general approach that their conversion rate is atrocious compared to going after what actually is working right now, right?
Yep, 100%. And again, this is why I said, man, it's, look, okay, one of the blessings that I had when I got in the business was it was 2005. YouTube didn't exist, no smartphones, there was no such thing as a podcast. Now I didn't have that information available to me, but I also didn't have the confusion that exists with all this information. So one of the hard parts is we jump, with all these content creators like myself and like Mike and all these other content creators, and they're like, oh, this is the best, this is the best, this is the best. And it's not that they're lying, but we gotta peel that back, right? Okay, is it the best for you based on your situation, your goals, your market, your strengths, your weaknesses? Okay, if somebody's part-time versus full-time, so we got to look at time allocation. We got to look at what your budget is. We got to look at what your personal timeline is. We got to look at what your market is. We got to look at what's going on with the overall economy and put take all these things into account to put together the best strategy for you. It's just kind of like, health and fitness, right? Like if somebody comes to me, what's the best plan for me? Well, I got to know your goals, man. Okay, like my workout regimen probably isn't the best for everybody. Right? Because I like to be freaking jacked, right? Like I like to, so everything I do when it comes to health and fitness, I care about longevity and, so I do some things for there, but it's like, dude, I'm trying to maximize hypertrophy, so when it comes to a very specific diet, food choices, the way I train with my weight, okay, like that would be totally different than somebody that's like, hey man, I just want to lose some weight and have optimized energy, or somebody that is maybe an endurance athlete. There is no best. It's figuring out, putting the pieces together of, okay, what's the best plan for you based on your own individualized situation.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that leads to a really great kind of topic to bring this full circle with, is kind of straddling goal setting with an actual routine. Because I find a lot of agents come to me and I'm sure they come to you too, and they say, if I just knew what I needed to do every day when I woke up, I would go do it. But they don't know what to do when they wake up. And a lot of that kind of stems from saying, okay, we need to get clarity on goals, but then we need to engineer that into a weekly routine or a daily schedule with KPIs to actually know. Because what I find is so many people are they're more focused on the goal of maybe the 2 deals a month and way less focused on the activities that if they're consistent with will lead them to the goal. And that's where there's a big kind of, sense of dissonance in there. So when it comes to an agent that's maybe saying, okay, I've really jacked up the first 6 months of this year, but I want to make sure the next 6 months are looking a little bit different. How do you approach that initial phase of goal setting and then breaking that in and saying, okay, on a weekly basis, you should be prospecting for 2 hours a day, or practicing your buyer's consultation and listing presentation for an hour a day? What does that look like for an agent that's maybe lost?
Yeah. So the first thing there, and we gotta start, high level and then, moving it down. Yeah. Right. So, so macro into micro, right? So, okay. First thing is, okay, like a lot of people struggle with motivation, but they don't like, what is motivation? Motivation is just taking action on the motives that you have, right? So, most people just lack motives, right? So meaning they don't have extreme clarity on what they want, why they want it, and why it's important to them. Like, why must this thing take place? So one of the first things that I do with a coaching client or with one of my agents that joins my organization is, I'm really breaking this down. Not just what their 12-month goals are, but their long-term visions as well, but really trying to identify, okay, well, and just asking yourself, certain consequence questions. It's like, we know, according to the great Einstein definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So, okay, if you continue doing the same actions you're doing right now and things don't change and your 2024 repeats exactly what your 2023 does, like, what are the negative consequences of that? So one of the things I have my coaching clients and my agents do is I have them write a positive and a negative paragraph on each of their goals. Right. So, okay, like, what does life look like if you don't achieve this? What does life look like if you achieve this? And the power of that is not only can we experience the pain before the pain exists, like we can start to really, be able to articulate to ourselves of what the value is of this thing. But sometimes we find that goals that we had were just bullshit goals that didn't matter. So like, here's an example. This was, years ago, but like I had a goal of buying a private plane. And then I got to a point where I started, okay, I think I'm at the point where I can go do this. And I start looking at planes and start going down that discovery process. Do I get my pilot license? What path do I go there? But then I started breaking down, well, what am I going to do with this thing? And then as I started diving deeper, I'm like, dude, I don't even want a fucking plane. Like, this is going to be like, I don't know, like sometimes like people like buy boats that never use them in the pain of storing them. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't even like, I don't even like to really leave my fucking house. I'm like, what I really want is like 20 acres where I can build my studio, build the office, have like, where I don't have to leave my property. I'm like, why am I buying a plane? I don't even fucking care to travel. So what I realized though, going through that is I wasted years of having this goal because, mentors and those that I looked up to and respected had planes. And I felt like, I needed to achieve that to achieve that. So, you got to make sure that the goals are your goals. And that might sound silly, but so I had a workout partner years ago. And the reason why I'll explain why we're not workout partners today. But so we're working now. This gentleman, I was, I don't know, in my mid 30s. He was in his mid 50s. And one day we get done working out. He's like, man, I just got to tell you something. I'm like, what's up? And he goes, man, until we started working out together, like because we were having obviously conversations while we're working out every morning. He goes, man, I never really thought about what I wanted. And I never realized until, again, we started working out together and having these deeper conversations. He was like, his dad was a high powered attorney, and his father passed away when he was really young. So he's like, every decision I made has been based around if my dad was still alive today, would he be proud of me? And he goes, until I started, doing that deep reflection and having these conversations with me, he's like, I never really asked myself, what the fuck do I want? And he's like, Josh, I got kids older than you now. And so then I was like, well, that's great. Now what the hell do you want? And he's like, man, I've always wanted to live on the beach in San Diego, Southern California. And then I'm like, okay, let's put a plan together to do that. So that's hence why we're no longer business partners, because within 9 months, I had him execute on the plan, and now he's living his dream life that he wanted to go out there and dream, right? But dude, if you are not extremely clear on the reasons as to why you must accomplish this, you will cave into all the reasons as to why you don't need to do the work. And there's going to be thousands of reasons to not do. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm not. I'm depressed. I'm down. Like we feel all those things. I feel all those things. Dude, I'm more demotivated and depressed more than I am motivated and happy. But commitment and success is only reserved for those that are truly committed. Commitment is doing the actions that you must do each and every single day, regardless of your emotional state. So the only way you're going to achieve your goals and then sustain and maintain those goals is to be truly committed. So that's I know I'm putting maybe too much emphasis on this, but it's so freaking important. Like lock yourself in a room for a day, 2 days, however long it takes, and get that extreme clear. What do you want? Why do you want it? Why is it extremely important to you? Why must this be accomplished while you exist on the, within this one gift called life that God's blessed us with? So then from there, now that you've got clarity, then from there, and this is just my success framework. Starts off with clarity, we just talked about, then boom, that then becomes the goal. Then you got to make, the next step is to mentally commit to making that goal reality, where it's okay, no matter how long this takes, no matter how much resistance I experience, I'm never stopping, I'm never quitting, I'm in this to win this, right? Like I'm going to, even if I don't achieve it, I'm going to freaking then die trying, right? Then from there, okay, then you articulate the right proven plan to get you from where you're at to where it is that you want to go. So that's really what you're kind of leading down here is, okay, how do we go out there and, find that plan? The cool thing is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's already people, it's not like, and maybe others that are watching and listening to this, maybe it's unique for them and different for them, but my guess is it's not, right? For any of us that are watching, it's not like we're Elon Musk trying to revolutionize interstellar space travel because we feel it's necessary to save the human species. It's like pretty much any goal that any of us have, like some motherfuckers went out there and accomplished those goals before. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. If I want to go out there and crush it, my business on YouTube, I'm just like, hey, Mike, like, dude, like, I know you've already cracked the code on this, dude. Like, just tell me what to do. Give me the plan. Because I'm telling you guys, it's hard enough just to execute on the plan day in and day out. When we also have to go out there and figure out the plan plus execution, we're pretty much setting ourselves up for failure out of the game. So for me, like, as soon as I identify what I want and whatever, it's just my next question is who? Who do I need? Like, who's already cracked this code that I need to go have a conversation with or buy whatever they're selling to figure this stuff out, to dial that in, because all this stuff can be reverse engineered. So we know all the numbers. Like if you come to me and you're like, hey man, like, so we know what we can reverse engineer the numbers. There's not an agent on this plan that can come to me or team leader or broker owner. We can't break down the numbers to know, okay, what are the KPIs that you got to be hitting on a monthly or an annual basis, monthly basis, weekly basis, daily basis to ensure that you're winning. And with the KPIs, like, okay, let's just say in a real estate business, how many leads do we need to be generating? But then from there, okay, well, how many dials, how many conversations, how many appointments set? Those are kind of the three most important KPIs I'm paying to on a daily basis, because if those three things are hit, everything else is going to roll into place. So let's just say, okay, you're going to go after, absentee owners, which is my favorite seller niche, hands down in this current market. I know it's $500, 50 conversations to one listing taken. So I know if I want to be listing an absentee owner listing of a week, okay, I got to have 500 dials, do 500, reach outs, 50 conversations, every week. Okay. If I'm going to do my dials Monday through Friday, that's going to be my working, days for at least prospecting. Okay. Now I know I got to do 100 dials and 10 conversations per day. Then, okay, how long does it take me to do that? Okay, if I'm using a dialer like Arch Agent, okay, I can do 50 dials an hour, 5 combos an hour. That's going to take 2 hours. Now I can time block it, make sure that happens, track it daily, because the other thing with tracking is, look, life happens and don't get discouraged by it. But it's like an airplane spends 90% of its time in the air adjusting the nose back to the target because of turbulence. You're going to have turbulence in life. Hey, man, I got this plan today. Then all of a sudden I get a call from my kid's school. They got strep throat. I got to come pick them up. Oh, crap. Okay, well, then that just means I just need to adjust my numbers for the rest of the week. Or if you go on vacation, okay, like we can adjust our numbers before you go or after you get back to still make sure that you're hitting your targets. But that's how, kind of from macro to micro of, breaking that down. And then from there, when it comes down to daily execution, not only do you have to know what those numbers are they got to execute on each and every day to go out there and win, assuming that you have the right skill set and process to maximize conversions, which should all be part of your plan creation process, but then from there, my recommendation is don't rely on willpower. Right? Like so many people are so reliant on willpower. I learned a long time ago for me, because I'm just a human being that has like zero willpower, hence why I used to be 300 pounds, morbidly obese, used to be a raging freaking alcoholic. I used to be a mess. Right. But dude, I have no willpower, dude. Right. So, but the cool thing is, like, I can be an extremely disciplined freaking freak without relying on willpower. How do I do that? Right. I just set my environment up to make it as easy as possible to go out there and win, and make it as difficult as possible to go out there and lose. It's okay. Like I get up early, right? But I'm too weak of a human being when my alarm clock goes off to not turn my alarm off or hit that snooze button. So what do I got to do? What kind of a system do I need to put in place to ensure my ass gets out of bed? Okay, let me go get a loud ass, big ass alarm clock, set it across the room in my master bathroom. So when that goes off super early in the morning, I got to jump out of bed, sprint across the room, shut it off before it wakes up the rest of the family. Now I'm up. Right. So like, I don't try to ever be like, oh, I'm going to be stronger tomorrow. Oh, I'm just going to, no, dude, I just find out what's blocking me, and then let me just eliminate that thing. Let me just remove it out of my situation, out of my life, make it as easy as possible to go out there and win, difficult as possible to go out there and succeed, or to lose, and I recommend that everybody watch and listen to this, and I'll shut up because I know I'm long-winded on all this stuff, is to win your day by noon. Right. So when I say that, okay, what are those essential KPIs, the most important activities that you must do, inside your business that move the needle forward at the highest possible level, and get those things done before noon. So if you're an agent, listen to this, that's going to be your prospecting and or lead follow-up time, right? So I'd make sure that you're hitting your reach out, conversation, appointment set goal every single day before noon, right? And it's twofold as to why. Okay, number one, we have more willpower as human beings earlier in the morning. It's like, okay, I'm not going to eat the carton of ice cream for breakfast. I'm going to eat that shit in the evening after I'm tired, mentally exhausted. My willpower is completely shot. Now, through the systems I said before, because I want to keep my body fat low, and having abs is really important to me because I'm a massively insecure human being, right? Where I don't feel good about myself unless I have a six pack. But I just make sure that ice cream's never in my freaking freezer, right? But with that being said, okay, it's easier to do the hard shit that we don't like doing. That's boring. That's tedious. That's mundane, because don't think for a second that those that are successful in this industry, in this business, like maybe me and Mike, that we like doing the things that you don't like doing. Now we hate it too. We just figure out a way to do it regardless, right? So it's like Brian Tracy, who's an amazing sales trainer, his famous book of Eat Your Frog First, like do the hard shit earlier in the day. The second reason is, okay, the longer the day goes on, the more distractions come up. Plus you're going to be more, your buyer consults, your listing presentations, it's fires, like that shit usually happens in the afternoons. And the longer the day goes on, the higher, so it's like, okay, what's the best time to go out there and work out? Well, for me, based on my goals, it would be middle of the day when my body temperature is at its highest and I've got multiple meals in me. I'm going to be stronger, more fresh, but I know that that's not going to happen for me. So I get up at 3 a.m. and I work out at 3 a.m. because it's the time that I can get it done, where I don't have distractions and whatnot. So, just make sure you're winning your day by noon. And then noon on, that's what I call pounding pavement time. That's, block off for all your listing presentations, buyer consultations, showing properties, like all that miscellaneous. And if you don't have those things going on, okay, you can stack on more lead gen and follow up.
I love that. I think it's, environmental design is so important, and just putting yourself in that environment that's conducive to growth, conducive to winning. And again, that's going to be different for each person. And I think that's where a lot of times right now, with all these changes happening, people need to take a step back and just audit where they're at in their business, where they're at in their life, and what do they actually want, and be able to bring that together. And I love that concept of getting, eating the frog in the morning too. And I do. That's why I do all my recording usually in the morning, where I'm fresh, I've got energy, and you really do feel like you've got an entire day's worth of work done by noon, and now you just get to continue to grow thereafter. But there's a wealth of things we could go through, Josh, and I want to drive a lot of people to your incredible content. And as we pull this full circle, I think a lot of people are going to have some takeaways from this conversation. Where do people go to find you? And also, based on your last couple of months of videos, what specific things should people be consuming from your content? I'm going to put them in the description below.
Gosh, dude, that's a tough question, because I try not to put out anything. Like I probably should, because it would get me a lot more views and followers, and if I put out a lot of the clickbait bullshit out there. But like I try not to put out any message that I don't believe is extremely relevant and things that we need to hear, and that are timely. So for me to sit there and say, I don't know, like, and I'm biased, it's my content, but I think all of it's powerful and all of it will impact you guys, and for different reasons. I do a lot of shit on mindset and energy management, and also, of course, tons of stuff on business and, and different angles of your business. But there's a couple of them that I've got over the last probably 2 months, there's a bunch that are specific to the NAR stuff. I created one that was, 11 things to take action on right now, which is really, chunking down and breaking down the 11 different points that, I recommend people really start, thinking through and taking immediate action on right now. For most of you, because lead conversion is a massive issue, I've created a lot of content recently around that I can't even think of the titles offhand. Maybe I'll just send them to you. Yeah. But you guys, go check it out. And then the other question there of all my handles, so like YouTube, social, Facebook, Instagram, it's all pretty much Joshua Smith GSD. The hub of where you can just go access everything is at GSD mode. So www.gsd, so stands for get shit done, gsdmode.com. And on there you can link, so anywhere that if you like YouTube or if you want to listen to podcasts, all the different platforms are on there. I've also, and depending on when you're listening to this, it may not be available, but for those of you that listen to this right out of the gate for, brief limited time, because my time's, very limited. But for about the next month or so, I'm offering free one-on-one, 1 hour long Zoom coaching calls, where you can book that with me, where we can really break down what your business is at, like all the things that we kind of talked about earlier of how we break down that right strategy for you. 100% free. Everything I do, zero pressure. So if you guys want to take advantage of that, you can go do that at gsdmode.com as well.
Definitely. Well, we're going to make sure that we get this video up as soon as possible so that people can capitalize on that. And the last thing, brother, you're coming to the event in Nashville. Again, we've got a pretty insane speaker lineup. And I know that there's been so many people in my ecosystem that are just ecstatic to finally meet you in person, as am I. What can people expect from your session at the Atlas Alliance Summit?
Yeah, the really cool thing there, like and hopefully I'm not misjudging this, but with the speaker lineup that you have and what I know of those speakers, there's already going to be so much amazing content on mindset and personal philosophy, and so I'm going to get extremely tactical on real estate, dude. Like, just, it's like you guys are probably going to get an abundance of that. And look, I don't know if I can give any better content on, or not even match their level of content of like Ed Milet or Louis, right, when it comes to those things. So I'm going to, really stay in my lane and go deep tactical in real estate. What I'm really excited about of the timing of your event is we'll now have been able to roll out how this stuff is going. So, and we're already starting to see it in our market. I took I think I said this earlier in the podcast, but 2 listings, over the last week that aren't offering, zero co-broke, zero, like they're just refusing. I've listened to CNN or listen to Fox News. We don't want to do this. We don't have to, right. And, so the cool thing by the event, so whatever I say right now, I'm going to probably be morphing it and adding to it, because then we'll have, about 3 weeks of actually applied, application of, so not just speaking from theory. So, but I'm going to keep it, extremely, extremely tactical. What do we need to do right now to go out there and crush it in this changing landscape with the overall economy, and again with all the NAR DOJ stuff, to ensure everybody's correct. Because there's no reason why everybody shouldn't be having the best year right now. I mean, right now there's so much insane opportunity, and everybody that chooses to, that's committed to, should go out there and take advantage of it.
100%, dude. Well, again, I couldn't be more grateful to have you at the event and for your time today. It's provided so much insight. I come away and I'm like, okay, I've got like 10 new topics that I can cover here. But again, guys, I truly encourage you, and I'm going to link not just Josh's channel below, but also the pinned comment and his site that hosts all of his different offers, and a couple of specific videos that I know that I've personally watched and can vouch have been life-changing when it comes to my perspective of what's happening right now. So all that's going to be below. You want to make sure to go subscribe, because he does only drop tactical stuff that actually matters. And you're a legend in this space, man. So thank you again for the opportunity and all the insight today.
Nah, it's an honor, man. Had a lot of fun. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Truly appreciate you, and keep crushing it.
Right on, guys. Thanks so much as always. Like, comment, subscribe. If you got some value from this, drop a comment what your biggest takeaway was. We'd love to hear it. And again, go check Josh's stuff out, and hopefully we see you guys at the event.